Well, welcome back to Pride and Perspective, where experience meets an unapologetic truth. I'm Dina Walters, and today I'm honored to sit down with my friend Madeline, a journalist, storyteller, proud trans woman whose journey has gone from working in the United States back home to her native Canada. It's more than just a change of address. It could be a reclamation of safety, autonomy, and self, and navigating that emotional weight of life in a shifting America to rediscover what home means back across the border. Maddie's going to share her insights as a journalist, but also somebody who's lived on the front lines of policy, identity, and hope. Remember, this conversation is not about geography. It's about freedom, resilience, and what it takes to be authentic.
Hi, Dina. Thank you for the wonderful intro. It's nice to see you again.
Let's start with your journey back to Canada. Was there a single moment or maybe a series of moments that made you feel like, wow, it's time to leave the United States?
Yeah, I mean, I would say it was all those executive orders that came out in the days following the inauguration.
Mm-hmm.
It just felt, the whirlwind of it just felt so heavy, felt so much like a burden. And the uncertainty of the future and what that could look like once kind of the dust settled, really gave me enough anxiety that it was just time for me to move home.
Does it feel good to be home?
It
Is
does.
is it let me ask you though, is Canada, does it feel maybe more affirming or less hostile to you and your identity?
I certainly have found that in my experience. There's the and how easy it was to change my identification here. A really cool story when I first showed up to cross the border into Canada to make that move home. I showed up with a expired Canadian passport. It had been expired for 10 years, so it was under my old name. I
Mm-hmm.
had my old photo. Um, and that's how I entered the country. And when I entered, the customs official obviously looked at me and was like, "What is this?" But then he said, "What name and gender should we use to have you re-enter the country?" And I don't know, I was just really struck by that there was a little sense of humanity to with respect to my situation. Um, and it just made me feel a lot safer. Like I was already across the border and here I was being asked what my preferred pronouns were and what my name was. Um, and it just took off from there. So I definitely feel much more affirmed here. Healthcare has been a lot easier to access here. I'm very fortunate. Many Canadians struggle to find a doctor, and within a couple of weeks of moving back home, I was able to find a doctor. And um, I was going through my list of prescriptions from the States, and um, the doctor asked me, "Well, why are you taking estrogen and progesterone? That doesn't make sense to me." And I said, "Oh, because I'm transgender." And he paused for a moment and he just smiled and said, "You're welcome here." And that would just felt like such another relief after everything that I had been through in these last few months. And so it also reminded me that, yeah, this is home and I'm accepted here.
Well, coming home isn't always seamless. Any other surprises getting back to Ontario?
I think the weather, it's cold. It's still winter.
Wait. Without saying, you were on the Atlantic seaboard and you were in the Great Lakes region, not exactly tropical places. I mean, yes, and even Canada here is south of where I'm at in Michigan, but, you know, really?
Yeah, I got
Birds
spoiled.
lake effect, maybe?
Perhaps, I don't know. I got a little spoiled. Well, when I first came to Canada, came back, I went straight to Ottawa, where I have a lot of friends, chosen family. I consider it home, even though I was born closer to Toronto. And Ottawa is known for their winter. When I showed up, the snow was piled higher than my car.
Ouch.
So I was like, oh yeah, I forgot what winter was like. This is what real winter is like. Since coming to Toronto, obviously it's a little bit more mild here.
For the benefit of the audience, my mother was born in central Ontario, Ingersoll, Woodstock area, came over and became a naturalized American citizen. And then she retired back into Ontario uh, to, and it was kind of interesting because, both sides would have gladly had her and both sides would have gladly had her tax revenue. Do you feel differently about advocacy now that you're back in Canada?
I don't think so. Other than I sense a need for it. We, I worry that we in Canada can get very complacent. Oh, we've already fought these battles. We do have all these rights. But we've seen our friends in the United States lose a lot of those rights. And so my concern is that we will have this been there, done that attitude, and we're just going to let things roll. I think we need to continue to remain vigilant, and continue to stand up and remind people that we are who we are, and we are still people, and we still need these rights.
What would you tell trans folks like myself here in the States? Based on seeing it on both sides of the Great Lakes, what is it that you think we need to know?
Honestly, the biggest thing I think of is to know that you're not alone. The world sees you.
Mm-hmm.
I want to give everybody in the US a big hug. And that's just how I do things. Hugs. I'm a touchy-feely person. When I first came to Canada, I spent about 2 weeks having strong survivor's guilt. Like I left so many people behind. I really wanted to bring everybody with me and just feel the comfort and safety of home that I feel now. Because I think so many people in the States have lost that safety and comfort. It's not unnoticed. Like I said, you're not alone. Yeah, I'm a little bit more limited in things I can do here, but I still have members of parliament to advocate to. I still have embassies to go to, U.S. embassies and consulates to rally in front of. There's ways to be still involved without physically being in the country. So I think that that's incredibly important to highlight. And I really just want everybody to know that they're not alone. Like we see you and hear you.
So, if I was to talk to Doug or Gord, average Canadian,
Oh, yeah, betcha.
yeah, yeah, $1 Labatt's Canadian potato. But if I was to talk to most average Canadians, because here in the States, the media is portraying it as, you know, a very push pull kind of situation. If I'm walking down the street in Ottawa or Toronto or I don't know, Moose Jaw or Chicoutimi or, I mean, what would the average Canadian say to me other than, Christ, what's going on down
There's been a lot of those conversations. It reminds me of like, like what was that really like? Like just coming out of a cult or something like that, where people just really want to know the full story.
there? The
Um,
bubbles aren't as good down there.
right?
For those of who you don't know, a double double is how you order a coffee at Tim Hortons. But
That's right. Yes, which really confused me when I moved to California. And the standard order at In-N-Out is a double double, and that's a hamburger.
what
Very different.
what would they say if the average American, and let's put them at a bar, they're having Labatt's and they're what would Doug say to us?
Yeah, there's a lot of sympathy here. There's concern. Again, with that, like, what's really going on? Is it really as bad as you hear? And then there's a little bit. We have this movement right now called Elbows Up. where
Yes.
we've been
Yes,
boycotting.
I have seen the social media videos with the new prime minister and Mike Myers. Yeah,
Mike Myers, yeah,
yes, and even the Canadian government has bought billboards here in the state.
I heard. Do they have them in Michigan?
Yeah, yeah. You drive up and down I-75, you see tariffs are not a tax. And there's the
There you
little
go.
Canada seal in the little corner. There was a joke when I was a kid. The worst thing you could do to a Canadian is if he got upset with you, you'd look and go, just, oh, for Christ's sakes. But now it's I really I've seen more moxie, more self-esteem, more national pride out of Canada in the last 90 days than I probably have in my previous years. Uh,
Absolutely, I would agree with you. I think Donald Trump did us a favor in that regard, is to bring the country together. I mean, even the Quebecers are doing this boycott USA movement. I only
I
bring
get
it
a
up.
Quebecois mad at you. No,
Right, you never want a Quebecois mad at you. No, no, no.
no, 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 no.
I bring it up to say that while we have this movement going on, I'm quite proud of myself that I went to the grocery store and spent $175 on items, and none of them were from the States, though you did call me out for my Post cereal,
Yes,
um,
yes.
which is made in Niagara Falls on the
I
Canadian.
acknowledge that. I just said it's an
Uh-huh.
Post is a American company founded in Battle Creek. So
Oh, yes, that's over here. I
yes,
can do my Michigan thing.
yes, yes, yes. You learned well, my daughter.
I
Um,
tried. But so I bring that up only to say that while it looks like we are kind of antagonizing the United States, we're standing up for ourselves, we don't want anything to do with the United States, it's not true of the people. It's their actions taken toward a government that is hostile to our Canadian identity, with the rhetoric that we've seen with calling us the 51st state. There was all of that, those posts that went viral about trying to redraw the boundary around the Great Lakes, things like that. It's not taken toward the American people. There's a lot of sympathy here for ordinary Americans, and they've been put into a situation they didn't ask for, right? Certainly, we're in a situation that we didn't ask for.
I did not vote for Donald John Trump. So, I usually don't like discussing it, but it's a little obvious. I mean, I have an arrow, I have a bullseye on my lapel tonight, but I feel more like I have a bullseye on my shirt, with some of this stuff on it.
Of course.
As a producer, an editor, or a journalist, Canadian news is kind of a little drier, a little less flashy. Yeah.
Right.
But it's a little more straightforward, a little more grounded. You don't joke with the sportscaster as much or things like that. I'm curious how transgender rights are reported on in Canada, but you also had a story being a Commonwealth nation. Obviously, what happened in Britain with their Supreme Court. So tell us, as part of the news, how did your outlet cover that?
We obviously relied a lot on the network. I work in local news, so I'm a very heavily focused on what's happening in our community versus what's happening around the world. But we absolutely have correspondence there, and it was covered and acknowledged. I mean, it was a big story internationally. We haven't quite seen a Supreme Court decision quite like, at least in my recent memory. So it the as you know, our head of state is the same in England as it is in Canada.
Right, the
Um,
ceremony for the Americans. Let me translate. House of Windsor has two very important functions. Number one, they are the chief diplomats for the Commonwealth nations, and the Commonwealth nations are also trading partners. It's like, they all have, say, I don't know, if Canada wants bauxite from Jamaica to make aluminum, you know, because they're Commonwealth nations, there's that, or other Commonwealth nations, other, are together, Canada and Australia. You want something from them, and there's that quid pro quo there. So a lot of Americans don't understand that. So I hope I made it kind of clear.
Yeah, and I think it's become even more apparent right now with the elbows up and like the boycotting the US. So we've had to rely more on our Commonwealth ties, talking about trade agreements, and there's definitely more of that uniting across the globe. We saw that with TikTok when the United States had that ban on TikTok for like 12 hours. Commonwealth talk was introduced, and all of a sudden on my feed, I had videos from Australia, videos from New Zealand, England, obviously, South Africa, and no American content. And it was called Commonwealth TikTok or Commonwealth Talk. But with that said, the UK Supreme Court decision has no impact on Canada. We are a separate nation, despite having the same historical political ties. So it was more covered as an international story than something that would happen here.
Do you have a perspective on that decision?
I haven't read too much into it, just to kind of protect my own mental health with everything that's happened in the US. I'm still trying to heal from that. And it felt like an energy that was piling on. And so um, I've reached out to a few friends who live in England, and just to literally just say, I want to give you a hug. I'm just really saddened that the war on propaganda and the like has is elevated um, so far to the Supreme Court of a nation. The rhetoric that you see online is turning into fact, which is now getting and changing policies. I feel disappointed that there was not enough conversations with transgender individuals. There never is in any setting. There's a lot of people talking about us, not with us. And that's very disheartening. And I wish there was a way to shift that a little bit and actually have trans voices uplifted. I think that a lot of the misinformation out there and a lot of misconceptions would just be erased if someone took the time to talk to another transgender individual, hear their story, see how happier we are. I know my parents were very skeptical when I came out. Both of them had a really hard time with my decision. And the way I won them over is through action. They saw how happier I was. They saw me come to light, um, kind of how I used to be when I was a child, when I didn't have to worry about puberty and things like gender. I could just play as a kid. And I think if you can win over my very conservative parents, I think I can win anybody over. At least give it an honest shot.
Final question here. Canadians versus Capitals. Can the Canadians goalie do another Ken Dryden?
Fingers crossed. I know I'm a big Habs fan in the
I
middle
know
of
you are.
Toronto.
That's why I threw you that one.
It's very weird to be in Toronto in this for this series. I feel like
You and Strombo. Maybe you should have a support group.
we really should. We're surrounded in enemy territory. It's going to be tough. I'm not afraid of Ovechkin though. I think we could pull it off.
They say he hasn't since they won the cup. They haven't won a series, so we'll see what happens there.
That's right. That's right.
Final takeaway for us tonight.
Just another message of rely on your community. Don't isolate yourself. I have noticed a lot of my trans friends in the US kind of bury themselves underground, and rightly so. There's a lot of concern for safety. But that's not a healthy way to live. Find community no matter what that looks like. If it's a Zoom call at home, that's great, but you're at least talking to somebody. So I would really encourage everybody to just find whatever that looks like for them that they can do safely and just be a part of that. This negativity is not sustainable. I truly feel that there will be a way that we can congregate and congregate safely. We'll always find a way to exist and take a break from the negativity and just find your people that accept you and just hang out no matter what that looks like, and just be. You'll be okay. Hang in there.
Eddie, thank you so much for joining us. Again, you bring wisdom and insight. We appreciate you making space for us. A lot of the media, a lot of things seem to be narrowing in. That's why, thanks for tuning by. I'm Dina. That's my perspective.